come to discover, dear listener, and everybody who cares about optimal progress, is that we've all been wasting our time lifting weights. In this country, it's a tradition, of course, to call this thing weightlifting. But remember, there's no room in science for the arbitrary or the traditional. We used to have this thing called weightlifting contests. When young guys would want to train, they would say, hey, let's go to the YMCA and lift weights. I have come to discover that lifting weights is a waste of time. The purpose of a bodybuilder is not to lift merely heavy weights. That's a power lifter's purpose. Let me reemphasize that. As a bodybuilder, dear listener, your primary goal is not to lift heavy weights, but to achieve high intensity or maximum contractions of the muscle. Obviously, the only place that you can achieve a maximum contraction would be in the fully contracted position. That is the only position of the exercise where 100% of the muscular bulk can be activated. So here's the idea. Let's eliminate the positive. It doesn't contribute much to growth stimulation. Beyond that, it's even more negative, again, in that it makes a deep inroad into recovery ability. Start holding your weights in the contracted position, at least in those exercises where you have resistance in the contracted position, and then lower. Let's go back to the leg training. With my clients, I have been putting a heavier weight than normal on the leg extension machine, a weight considerably heavier than they can handle for 6 to 10 reps to failure. I help them into the straight leg contracted position, and they hold it there for as long as they can, literally, until they give me a signal that their static or holding ability is about to go out. And then I emphasize, now start to lower it very slowly under control. Then when they reach the bottom of the negative movement, I tell them to shake their hands out, take a deep breath, reset psychologically, and let's do one more. I just had a very clear example of the success of this last week. I had one client start up with me 3.5 months ago. He couldn't do the whole stack on the leg extension for even one rep. I forget what he started out with, but after 2 months, he was up to the whole stack for 14 reps. Then he hit a sticking point. He couldn't go beyond 14 reps for 3 workouts. This was when I started working with the idea of static contracted holds and lowerings. For 2 or 3 workouts in a row, all he did was hold a very heavy weight in the straight leg position and lowered it, doing it 2 times in that fashion as I described. The next workout, we went back to see if there was a carryover to the positive strength, and his leg extensions went up to 20 reps. That's a phenomenal improvement, and I'm seeing this with many other people. I've been using it most successfully on the pull-downs. You can do it there because, obviously, once you get into the contracted position, there is significant resistance. You have to fight to hold it there. But we've eliminated the least productive part of the movement and are focusing on the more productive part of the movement. Remember here, listener, as a bodybuilder, your primary concern is not to lift heavy weights. That's the purpose of a power lifter or Olympic lifter. As a bodybuilder, your primary consideration, your overriding concern should be to achieve high-intensity muscular contractions. On a deeper, more scientific, technical level, the science of bodybuilding exercise revolves around the issue of muscular contractions. The only position where you can achieve a full contraction is in the fully contracted position. For instance, at the top of a curl. That's the fully contracted position. At the top position of a leg extension, where the tricep it would be when the arm is fully straightened and the elbow locked. Now, the problem the listener is going to have is finding exercises in his gym that will enable him to do this. Now, most gyms do have leg extension machines and pull-down machines. Fortunately, over here at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, where I train people personally, we also have a full complement of Nautilus machines, all of which provide resistance in the contracted position. But don't worry about it too much. Do it where you can. Try it with the pull-downs, the leg extensions. see what happens, or you can come out to Gold's Gym here and I'll put you through a few workouts. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this is literally one of the most stunning discoveries in recent bodybuilding science. Just because we call this thing weightlifting, it's not cast in stone that you just lift weights. In fact, most bodybuilders, knowing nothing about this, they don't even do the positive or the lifting properly. They throw the weight, and then once they reach the contracted position, they immediately let it flop back down, not emphasizing either the contracted position or the negative. They're severely limiting themselves. Your muscles, remember, listener, have three levels of strength: the positive or the lifting, the static strength, which is your holding ability, and the negative. If you only work one level of your three levels of strength, do you see where it only stands to reason where you're not going to achieve full muscular development? Where is it cast in stone that you should only lift weights? It's a tradition. And again, if you want to take a truly scientific approach to this thing, you've got to reject tradition, or at least question it.